Hey there. Welcome to the Bodybuilding.com podcast. Fittest podcast in the world.
Ever.
On your phone. It gives your phone an instant six-pack. Just ripples.
Yep. 22-inch biceps.
Unless, of course, you do everything wrong. And that's our topic for today. You're doing it all wrong. It's surprising. You think, what could I be doing wrong? I subscribe to all the right Instagram feeds. I go to the right websites. I go to bodybuilding.com. I listen to this podcast. There's no way I could be doing everything wrong.
Chances are you are doing everything wrong.
Well, I know I'm doing everything wrong.
No, I think we can all learn from one or two things discussed today.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
We have here Krissy Kendall, a.k.a. the fit chick. Dr. Krissy Kendall, a.k.a. the blue shirt.
The blue shirt.
It's a blue shirt, right?
Yeah. It's famous.
And this is radio, so it doesn't matter what color. We're all wearing posing suits.
Yeah.
I've got my...
Gotta be naked.
That's right. I've got my hair back in a Kai Green man bun.
Yeah. Don't ask what's happening below the table.
And you just heard the voice of Dr. Bill Geiger. You're a doctor.
No!
I know. Bill Geiger is here. He's our first guest, former editor of Muscle Mag, Muscle and Fitness, Muscle Fitness Hers, Muscle and Fitness Ours.
There's
everyone.
All the pronouns.
All the muscles.
Bill been around the block anyway, and he's going to tell us pass along some life lessons, what he's learned, so that we don't have to.
Yeah, learn from your mistakes.
I'll be your guinea pig.
Thank you.
Well, give us a little window into what got you in the gym in the first place, and where you're the dawn of Bill Geiger's training life.
Well, it was a long time ago. I was doing...
Like, are we talking 60, 70 years?
I'm going to give you perspective, all right? So
Krissy,
I've been training for...
She's bringing the age jokes
Yeah, I've been
early
training
here.
for 35 years now, and I worked in sports information at a small Division III college in L.A., and I worked with all the athletes from the various sports as part of that job, and was friends with a lot of football players, and so it just sort of got me started training. I liked how it looked on those people. They weren't insanely large at the Division III level, and then you just sort of get hooked,
And so you were lifting with football players rather than bodybuilders at first?
There were no bodybuilders. There were so few bodybuilders back in this is like the early 80s that it was still, Arnold had just finished competing in 1980, so it was still pretty new.
So then where did you learn from? Just from
Where did I learn? Well, I got to tell you what, there were none of the resources you see today. For the most part, I learned from people who were already doing it. You watch guys do it, or guys would help you learn how to work out. It was a small gym, so it wasn't too large. And, perhaps you read a magazine, but there's only so much you can learn from an A and B picture, and even reading an exercise description, because you're going to read it. You're not reading it at the gym, you're reading it at home, and then you have to remember all that by the time you get to the gym. Well, most of that's gone. So
yeah, that's something that I tell people. I mean, I'm sure that we all have people who in our lives who come to us and are like, oh, you work for Bodybuilding.com. Oh, you guys are experts. You got to tell me what to do. Or send me some articles. I always think you don't understand. There's zero substitution for personal oversight from somebody who knows what they're doing. Somebody just to come and say, yeah, here's what you're doing wrong. Because when you're starting out, you have zero bodily awareness.
Right.
You're uncoordinated.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
You're totally uncoordinated. And somebody can tell you, this is something I've heard from a bunch of trainers as well. They say, don't round your back during that deadlift. And you think, oh, okay. And you really think your back is straight. And your back is so bent. And everything looks so wrong. And you just have zero awareness, zero control.
Absolutely
or even what muscles. Someone's like, pull with your lats. Pull. It's like, where the hell are my lats? Where do I feel this? And people don't.
Over there.
Lower body, legs.
Around the corner.
Yeah.
Calves. Somewhere.
So who was the great mentor that kind of put you on the right track finally?
Well, I actually had a couple of friends that were on the football team and invited me to come work out with them to get started, and that's where I learned. Most of what I learned in the beginning was sort of pretty much basic free weight movements, but you're at the mercy of their knowledge, typically. And
Do you ever get, you have that moment guys talk about, I got pinned under 95 pounds?
No, never had that moment. 95 pounds. Wow. I don't.
You haven't lived until you've been pinned underweight.
I think Jay Cutler, one of those guys, has one of those stories where it's like, I got straight up pinned under 95 pounds the very first time.
Yeah, one of the interviews I did early on was with a guy who got pinned, or his father had gotten pinned, and I hate to say this, but his father actually died under a weight. And
Wow.
learned from one of those stories. He was at home alone training in the basement, put collars on a bench, and you can't move without a spotter, and you know big problems can happen. So the lesson there is don't use collars when you train alone.
So you had spotters from the start. You did it right.
Pretty much. I mean, in the college gym, there's lots of people there, and the thing is, when you're a beginner, every workout you're stronger than the last one. So you're always putting on a little bit more weight and pushing yourself to do it, and it keeps going up. So it's very motivating.
Do you remember your first injury in the gym?
No. Probably
Wasn't
embarrassment from my skinny legs
Wasn't
or
that
something.
memorable?
Calf shame is an injury.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know. I always remember my first.
Yeah. So like throwing your back out or something like that.
Yeah, no, I think it was just jumping on a box, falling.
Or attempting to jump on your box.
Yeah, falling a few inches short.
You know, I think it was doing something like bicep curls where I strained something in my back and I could really feel it for a couple days.
Monster cheat curl. Like, yeah, look at that thing. I can curl that. Look at me that thing.
Yep.
How do you injure your back on bicep curls? You know?
Yeah, but it's.
How's that possible?
I think it's
Using that
probably
momentum.
That's right.
Get the bar up.
But it's the back is the deal, man. I like that. I feel like that's the thing that sends so many people towards websites like ours in the first place anymore. Is because, I know in my case, like every 6 months, like clockwork, I would just have 2 days where I was just on my ass because my back would just decided that it hated me over and over again. And after about 3 or 4 times doing that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to be chasing around back pain or getting chased by it for the rest of my life if I don't start doing something right now. And it's got to be like a choice. Like I have to embrace it as a way of life with the specific goal of not being in back pain, because back pain is the worst thing, as I think you understand, Bill. Oh, yeah. And you understand that as well. It's just and everybody thinks they're immune to it.
Long-time lifters, it's common. I mean, most of us have back pain stories, and it's just one of those things that you better learn from, or it's going to knock you out eventually.
Now, one thing I see around here, watching people in the gym and listening to people talk about, strength training all the time, is you see people catch different bugs all the time, where it's like, somebody gets the strength bug, like that's it. You know what? I'm gonna see what my 1 RM potential is, or they get the I'm gonna be under 10% body fat all year round sort of bug, or like the I'm gonna compete sort of bug. People get those. Like you can just tell when somebody's sort of in a phase. Have you caught all the bugs over the years?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there are times, especially if part of your job is going to bodybuilding shows,
right,
and you just see these guys in great shape. And it's like, I want to just get big. That's the only thing I want to do is just get big.
Yep.
And then, in the summertime, you see the ones that have the great abs at the beach, and I need to get on a diet and just bring my body fat down. And that will magically make me look bigger, even if I'm not as big as I had thought I wanted to be.
When do you think was the best shape of your life? Like the baseball players always say that, so-and-so's in the best shape of his life. When were you in the best shape?
It's hard to say, but it's funny because people have posted pictures on Facebook of me, from 20 years ago. And it's like, wow, was I really in that kind of shape? Or was I? Because sometimes our self-perception is different than, looking back now, it's like, wow, I didn't realize I was that big or that lean.
It's how
or
you
something.
define best shape of your life, too.
Also, yeah.
Because you could look amazing, right? And you'll hear competitors talk about that, but the damage that they're doing to their bodies to get to that point, whatever they're taking, however they're training, however they're dieting, it's not really the best shape of their life. That might be in their 50s and 60s when they figure out and get their shit together and say, this is what I need to do and this is what I need to not do.
Yeah, I've heard that from a couple of our athletes where they say, I competed X times, 1 time, 3 times, and my body never forgave me.
Yep.
Without naming any names, I was like, oh yeah, I see what that means.
Even at Muscle and Fitness,
sometimes.
Even at Muscle and Fitness, we'd shoot guys the day after the Mr. Olympia contest, the guys that won the contest, the biggest and best bodybuilders in the world, and they struggled with their workouts the next day because they were so depleted, mostly just energy. The worst of all was giving them a leg workout to do the day after they competed in a Mr. Olympia kind of contest, and they'd only want to put 2 plates on the bar because, and that was sort of the pre-Photoshop days, which now we can fake anything, right?
Well, we got a photo from Phil Heath in the final days before we moved into the new office, where he was holding this dumbbell like this, doing this curl, and it's got like 8 10-pound plates or whatever on the other side there was one. Because somebody didn't crop the photo properly.
Well, and it's funny because there were times when, we'd have articles, and one top pro who passed away, Nasser El-Sambadi, we shot him with his heavy arm workout, and he's doing standing dumbbell curls with 35 pounds. Again, this is pre-Photoshop, and it's just like, how is that going to work in this article, So.
What... Do you have any accomplishments that looking back in your, what do you say, 30 plus years, that you're like, you know what, that was maybe the greatest accomplishment I had in the gym? It doesn't have to be like 700-pound deadlift, but like something like I've asked that to various bodybuilders that I've interviewed here, like Jay Cutler, and they always have interesting answers to that. Well,
you know what? I wish I had Jay Cutler's accomplishments, but I always wanted to bench 400, never came close. I think I got to 315 for a couple reps. I was more limited based on my genetics and than other people, but we're always comparing ourselves upward rather than downward. So in a sense, those were good accomplishments, but I always wanted more. Right. So, and honestly, too, I have learned so much since then. Like, for example, if my bench was 315, my best bench, I've learned from two of our strength writers, Todd Bumgardner and Josh Bryant, that there are ways to attack your bench from the start position and the lockout position that can help you improve. Well, we didn't even cover those kinds of concepts, 15 years ago in a bodybuilding magazine. So I feel like if I had some of that knowledge that I see now that I had it back then, probably would have been able to at least have some strategies to kind of overcome some of those limitations.
And one thing that it seems like bodybuilders get right, as opposed to, say, guys who are so focused on strength, is figuring out how to make heavy weights light. Like, everybody's like, there's this obsession these days with your 1RM. I see it in YouTube comments all the time. Like, oh, my 1RM is blah blah blah. What does their 1RM look like? It's probably a battle for their life. But somebody who can take a reasonable weight and make it into something that gives them a sincere stimulus to get stronger is a whole other skill.
Absolutely. And bodybuilding isn't about pushing maximal weights, number one. It's about looking good on stage. So it's clearly different. But I was thinking about that point the other day. I was doing, because my shoulder, I have a bum shoulder too. And so one of the things I do for chest is do like a pre-exhaust routine. And that allows you to isolate with a single joint movement your chest first. It becomes pre-fatigue, so when you get to the presses, you don't have to use as heavy a weight, because maybe the press hurts your shoulder. But so now you have to use less weight. So there are ways to make a weight feel heavier, and pre-exhaust is one. There are others that slow down your repetition speed and some other techniques that a lot of bodybuilders use. A lot of bodybuilders have injuries, and after having interviewed many of them, they do things to cheat around the system, and they don't go full bore heavy all the time just because they can't. So making a weight feel heavier than it really is a real skill, a real art and skill.
Well, and I think there's an under-recognized strength benefit there too. One of the strength coaches who writes for me, Tony Gentlecore, had an interesting piece on his blog about this recently, where he said, he likes to he started doing chest flies so that he can feel his chest working more during his bench press, and he feels like his bench press form. And he's not a guy who's seeking muscle. He's a pure strength guy, but he feels like pre-fatiguing the chest allows him to feel a heavy movement where he should feel it a little bit more. And I found that, like, I know I joke around about the ass blasting program that Paul and I have been doing, but if I do single,
Paul,
if
ass blasting.
if I beat the shit out of my ass before doing kettlebell swings, I can tell what good form is. And if not, then my ass is numb from sitting up there all day, and I have to pre-fatigue it to a point where it's like, oh God, I just woke up. Oh, I feel terrible. It's got to be sore. Ass and triceps both have to be sore, I find, in order to actually work for me.
Right. And I think, though, people can get that confused, because I'll see people doing pre-fatiguing and then trying to do heavy squats. It's like, I think you're missing the point of why you do a pre-fatigue set, or why you might do higher repetitions. For me, shoulders, unless I do super high reps, not going to feel anything. But I could do 3 sets of 10 on RDLs and I will be sore for 3 days after that. I learned which muscles respond and adapt to a certain stimulus. Yes, it takes a lot of years and reading and staying up to date and listening to experts and watching videos. But it kills me when I see people just doing, oh, I read it in this article. Pre-fatigue, do this. I need to do 4 sets of drop sets on leg extensions before I go and start doing some heavy strength protocol. It's like you're missing the whole thing. And then again, that's what leads to injury. So it's not just, you have to figure out what works for you. You have to play around, you have to try, you have to experiment. I think people get a little nervous about doing that in the gym if they're not comfortable with it.
Well, nobody wants to feel those eyes on you, like there's somebody shaking their head at you.
Yeah, and that's just, again, years of experience. I don't give a shit. I go in there, headphones on, don't talk to me, let me do my thing. There's mirrors there if you want to look at what you're doing, but kind of getting over your ego and what you're doing, try it out. Videotape yourself, look at your form. Because like you were saying before, my back's totally straight. I'm not rounding my back. Yeah, you are. But if you can't see it, can't feel it, you're not going to know.
That gets to sort of like the one lesson I did not put in the article that I'd written about the 22 lessons I learned, was that you never stop becoming a student. You're always learning new things. I have been exposed to so much with professional trainers and bodybuilders and athletes, and I always learn something new from them, and I try it in the workout. And if you come in with the attitude is I know everything that there is to know, that I need to know, you're going to close off new ways of thinking and new ways to train. And so it's really important, in my opinion, to just always be a student, always being a student of the sport.
If you go to the website of our podcast, you can click to a link, read Bill's article. 14, how many is it? 14 things?
14 lessons I learned after 34 years of lifting.
Oh, okay. 31. What makes you shake your head when you see somebody doing something in the gym? Like,
you mean daily?
Multiple times
daily.
Nobody has ever done anything with poor form in this gym, of course, in the bodybuilding.com gym.
Absolutely not. We are models.
We're all experts, right? Yeah, I see it in our gym too. It's, again, beginners tend to make more form types of mistakes as you get more experienced. Hopefully you're learning, and that's why it's so important to learn from someone who knows. If you're not born knowing how to do a Romanian deadlift and keeping your back flat. It's something you have to sort of turn sideways in the mirror and know what to look for. And I've actually tried to teach a flat back to people, and it's really hard to get them to learn that. They just want to keep it rounded, and it's just like flatten it, stick your butt out, bring your chest up, and it's not first nature to a lot of people. It's really tough to learn.
Why do you think that is? Is it weakness in the lower back? What's the weak link that's making? Because I feel like I see that all the time.
Well, think about how you pick up something from the ground, and I think that's what people associate it with. Like, I'm not going to use my legs. I'm going to bend at my back or bend at the waist, pick something up. That's what we're used to doing. Which is why low back injuries.
Right. Yeah. But also,
most common injury we have.
There's deadlifts and there's Romanian deadlifts, and a lot of people don't know the difference between them. So they actually make a movement that combines elements of both. I see that all the time.
Stiff-legged RDL.
Well, and then there's a stiff-legged deadlift as well. But in terms of like the deadlifts, which should touch the floor because you're coming from a dead stop, whereas Romanians don't touch the floor. But I see people putting the bar on between reps on Romanians all the time, and it's just like, well, no, that's supposed to be a deadlift, and that changes what's going on. And it's really, you might have a good idea how a movement's done, but there's lots of technical things about your head, and because I see too many people craning their neck and putting their cervical spine, and that's actually how I had a herniation in my cervical spine was looking down while I was shrugging with heavy weights. Now those 100-pound dumbbells are going right through my arms, through my shoulders, right to my spine, and there's a real natural desire to look down. And if you watch people in the gym with heavy shrugs, they're going to start looking down. That changes what should be the natural position of the cervical spine, and all of a sudden you've got it out of position, and you got stress applied with heavy weight with a spine that's out of alignment, and that is the recipe for disaster. I mean, nothing short of disaster. I ended up having neck surgery that was an injury that lasted several years, actually.
And it was just one rep. You just went, shit.
Well, it was a little bit progressive, but it was one exercise that I had one technique part down wrong. I was looking down, and when it happened, it felt like a knife got inserted right in my shoulder blade. It was a stab, and my whole arm went numb for about 3 weeks. And then it just atrophied. And I mean atrophied so bad that I could do a dumbbell press with my good side with 100 pounds. The bad side, I couldn't do 20 pounds on a dumbbell press, and it was shaking the whole way. There was no nerve connection anymore. I mean, that's how bad it got.
Then did you go to the doctor right away, or did you think, it'll pass?
Went to chiropractor, acupuncturist. You know, they tell you to start with conservative treatment, but with nerve injuries, I think you need to be a little bit speedier on how it's done, because some of those, if they hang around too long, they're not going to reverse themselves. So,
but nobody wants to hear that they can't lift to take time off. So I don't go to the doctor. Well, fine. It'll fix itself.
There is this whole other world of sports therapy out there. What have you guys had good luck with?
Chiropractor.
Yeah. I love my chiropractor.
I do too.
I've had the neck injury, but when I get chiropractic, it just sort of releases and it just moves more easily. You know, same with my middle back as well. But I love going to chiropractic.
What about soft tissue stuff, Graston and all of those? Have you ever tried any of that?
I've done a little bit of it. I'm just not quite as a fan, because I really think that a lot of where my injuries come from, where I always feel lower back pain on my right side, same spot, it's because my hips are off. I'm putting more weight onto my right side than my left side. I'm compensating. And a lot of that, I think, comes from manual adjustment. I think, to relieve some soreness, some treatment like that. Yeah, massage, those sorts of things. Stim, or, now they make those portable, TENS units. And I have one. It's awesome.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, what's one of those run? That's interesting.
Oh, super cheap on Amazon, like $25.
Wait. Lay that out for us. What is it? What do you do with that exactly?
Yeah, so really cool portable unit. And if you've ever had, I remember back in my high school days, broke a bone in my ankle, or I guess the lower part of my tibia, and they used it to, it's more or less just immediate pain relief. It doesn't really translate into prolonged any sort of, relief from discomfort sort of thing. So, used to get it, we called it stem, used to get it on my my lower leg, helped to kind of increase nerve impulses, increase conduction in that area, help to minimize some of the inflammation, things like that. Well,
is it like a cold laser?
No,
or what is
no,
it?
it's, I'm trying to describe it. It's come from a science background, but it's like electrodes, if you can think of that. And so it feels like kind of like if you were to take a high dose of beta-alanine and you get that sort of tingling feeling, which you just did. Yeah. So imagine that, but on a body part, right, that you can localize. And so now I use it for my lower back. When I feel like it's really tense, it kind of helps to relax it. So basically what you're doing is kind of disrupting the normal neural patterns there, to kind of take a really tense muscle or groups of muscles and cause them to relax a little bit, to increase blood flow and circulation like that. So, you put it really anywhere, and they give you instructions, obviously, just so you don't hurt yourself. You can adjust the intensity so that the more tight you are, the more pain that you're experiencing. You can crank that bad boy up. You can keep it on for an hour, if you will. Yeah, so super easy, portable. It's been pretty awesome. I know a few people in the office are using it.
They're just sitting on one at any
moment.
Yeah.
Zzz, when you're at your desk hearing that. So
that's what that is. Okay.
Yeah. Know what you're thinking. It's for health. So that's one of the things I started using after I ruptured a disc in my back. Yeah, for the same reasons. I have such tightness on one side, and that's been one. But yeah, you go to the chiropractor if they use it there, or the physical therapist. I've always used it with physical therapists. They probably have a nicer one that's a little bit more expensive, but you can get them pretty inexpensively on any online store that sells TENS units.
You know, Nick and Krissy, one of the things that, like, the most important lesson learned in training was that God didn't design the human body to do this kind of activity repetitively for many, many years, if not decades or more. We weren't designed that way. The bodybuilding has only been around for 50, 60 years. We haven't had the chance to evolve that fast. It's an activity that will tear your body down over time, even if you do everything right. You're going to have issues ultimately. So, I mean, there are ways to lessen that. You know, make sure you use good form, schedule downtime, and some other things. But, you know, it's just ultimately your body is breaking down, and you need to be able to, you know, manage that. You know, most of us are recreational athletes. For people who are seriously into sports or professional bodybuilding, they're committing everything to it. You know, and I don't know that they can, but I think for the rest of us, you know, it's an activity we need to manage, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure both of you have known plenty of people who compete, I imagine, over the years, and maybe helped them out in various ways. Like what's that person as they just get closer and closer to that climactic date in their life, how dark of a time is that for somebody? Yeah. Like what is the potential for injury, for doing things wrong, just almost inevitable at that point? That would be my concern, is that I would get to a point where I couldn't be a good ally for myself. I'd be working against myself, and I would need somebody there to tell me, whoa, you're totally doing this wrong right now.
Yeah.
Do those people need somebody in their corner?
I think so. And I don't even think it comes down to what they're doing in the weight room as far as a safety thing, but man, some of my friends who have competed, it is, I mean, you're just concerned about their mental stability, how they're, you know, when they're alone, what are they thinking? What are they doing? What are they, you know, some of these journals, the things that they write down, like where their mind goes.
All work and no play.
They've got lists of just foods that they're going to eat. And so it's kind of, you know, you can do the same thing in the weight room, but when you are so structured for a certain period of time, and then you just let yourself go, whatever that means. All constraints are gone, or restraints. You know, there's nothing holding you back. It's scary.
Is it just the allure of seeing those abs in the mirror the first time? You go, oh, never again will I allow myself anything.
Yeah.
I must have them forever. I don't know. Having never seen my abs, I can't say.
Well, Nick, there was
I've seen two of mine
in professional bodybuilding.
Wait, they're there. I just found them. They're right here.
When the light is just right in a very dark room, you can see the abs. I was going to say, in professional bodybuilding, I guess about a decade or two ago, you saw a lot of the top guys relying on Nubain, which was I'm not exactly sure if that was a drug, it was an anti-inflammatory or what, but they were training having to use this as a painkiller, and you'd sort of hear about it sort of in the not in the mainstream press, but more, you know, underground
conversation.
Yeah, and you know, that's not healthy, you know, because if you're on a painkiller, you can do about anything, and once it wears off, you're going to be awfully sore from what you put a damaged joint through during that time. So
I'd say you see that more with bodybuilding than more on the female side of things. When you got bikini competitors, and I don't think they're still trying to, you know, push heavy weights, try to do, you know, they're dropping weights, they're doing a lot of cardio, and so it just becomes, I mean, it's still wear and tear to your body.
Those fitness competitors, I imagine.
I mean, like physique too.
Yeah, it's fitness at the Arnold and at the Olympia. We always try to watch, just because it's such an incredible display of athleticism. It's like this weird little mini Olympic event with way worse music, and you know.
Yeah.
But those women, I imagine, just must be sore as hell.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I was a weight class athlete in college, and obviously we weren't judged by the way our muscles looked, but how we performed. And I was a rower, and I raced as a lightweight rower. And you want to talk about being miserable trying to make weight and still practice 3 hours a day. You know, and it's a little, you know, we're weighing in. You weigh in an hour before, so it's not like I'm an UFC fighter and have 24 hours to put weight back on or to.
But even that,
I mean, it's horrible. The things you do to your body and kind of, you know, I've learned a lot since then. I would do things 100% differently than how I was trying to do it back then. But it's the same thing. You learn from what the other people, so what the other rowers were doing. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And that's the thing. The one thing I will say, you're starting to see people competing who are doing 4 months prep, 6 months prep, and slowly going into it, kind of getting away from this 8 and 12 week balls to the wall, try to diet down in the shortest amount of time. And that's what we did as athletes. You don't want to be in a calorie deficit and working out and training your ass off for 6 months. What I think we're finally starting to realize is if you do a slower progression, you don't have to make it so drastic. You don't have to cut so quick. And then you see less injuries, you see less burnout, and you see less rebound coming back from it.
Right.
And I hope to see it continue going in that way with these longer.
That makes sense. Yeah. It's interesting that you bring up 12 weeks. Of course, we always have these 12-week everythings in our programs here and everywhere. And I remember Bill Phillips telling us all here the story of 12 weeks, which is I had a vacation in 12 weeks. I decided that was what I was aiming for. But, that was what, 22 years ago when that particular story happened. But you've been in this industry longer than that. Was 12 weeks? Did that have cachet before then, or before that? Did everybody have a more reasonable
I think that the transformation aspect is something that probably emerged after Bill Phillips, because he offered, I think, the first contest for those kinds of things. You saw before and after pictures used by advertisers a lot before that, but you didn't see the competition, the transformation competition aspect of it. And Bill, I think at the time, was giving out $100,000 to his winners. So that changed it more for the regular guy, as opposed to the before and afters featuring professional athletes. It was like, well, of course he can get out of shape and gets in shape. He knows how to do it. And you see a lot more of that today. I wish, because I think there's a motivational aspect to writing your name down and doing a commit to a transformation, because other people doing it, we have people at work doing it, so I want to do it. And I think that's more successful than just some arbitrary, I'm going to get in shape. And so I think that's one of the reasons. It's just more a successful way to do a transformation.
Yeah, but sometimes it can also just get a little awful.
Well,
I'm sure you hear it as much as anybody, but I've heard from some people, God, I hate transformation season, because people you start hearing weird things discussed that just feel like, why are you talking about that? I heard two people arguing about in the break room about whether carrots had too many carbs to allow them to eat a carrot.
Well, if there's ever a high carb food, it's carrots.
Now, in this person's defense, I have since then seen these charts in various pieces that are like, carrots are remarkably high carb and high GI for a vegetable, but whatever. It's a carrot. How many are you going to eat?
You're going to tell me I can't eat carrots? Come on. That's what I hate about transformations. You start picking apart every food.
One of our coworkers, when we had our goal board put up there, something like, don't have such a fat lower body.
That was me.
No.
I'm kidding. No, I know.
I saw it and I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah, no, I know.
Don't write that out there for everybody. Come on.
Yeah.
And that's not even a goal. That's just an insult.
You're insulting yourself.
As a packaged insult, we can just bandy around.
Put yourself down before anyone else can.
Right. And some part of me was like, oh, I shouldn't say anything. But another part of me was like, what are you doing? Get that off of there. That's a horrible goal.
Yeah. But I mean, essentially, that's what a lot of the times when we write these goals, we're saying, what do we suck at right now? Or what's the crappiest part about our body? And then can I change it in 12 weeks? And then what are you going to do to change it? So
maybe that's it, though. Maybe we do need to do single body part focused transformations.
Yes.
12 weeks of nothing but
spot dieting for a particular body part.
12 week bleaks. 12 weeks to bleaks. I got our next one.
Spot reduction works. Let's just get those saran wrap.
That's it.
Bells.
There is some. It's cold. If you put cold on it, supposedly it does work.
Cryotherapy.
Yeah.
Some lady died doing that. FYI.
No, not full body cryotherapy, but localized. So there's this condition where in the old days, kids would their cheeks would get really gaunt when they had a lot of ice and ice cream during the summer, and that there actually, and there's been some research into this. There actually is a localized fat burning process that happens when you expose something to cold over and over and over again.
So if I just put a bunch of ice bags
straight up
my ass, done.
Well,
Don't bother me
There
tonight.
are some companies who make the brown fat activating cold bags.
Yeah.
Like they say, the brown adipose tissue, which is the fat burning tissue or fat burning fat, is located up here, and there are little vests you can get that are you freeze them and you put it on.
I've heard of those. Yeah.
Tim Ferriss and Ben Greenfield both have written about.
When are we going to start selling them on our site?
I think we need
can I get a discount?
some testers.
Yeah, no, sign me up.
So let's talk about this young man. You see the young Bill Geiger around you, the young everybody around you in the gym, right? How is that person setting themselves up for pain?
Oftentimes you just see someone at the beach, at the store, little jacked body. It's like, yeah, I want to look like that. And so they either have equipment build a little gym in their basement, have a school gym, join a gym, $20 a month, whatever. And then everything's available to them. They can do, you can do hundreds of movements in a gym, but some are better than others. Everyone can be done wrong until you learn the right form. Even like things like, how many sets should you do? How many reps should you do? What kind of weight should you lift? How long to rest between sets? Those are all important variables that are linked to muscle growth. Oftentimes these beginners have no idea. They just go in, put weight on the bar and lift it.
Right.
But
we do see this this profusion of advanced training ideas everywhere.
Right.
Everybody talks about drop sets, double drop sets, triple drop sets, going beyond failure,
occlusion,
as if that's
training.
as if that's an inevitable part of everything that you do.
Well, it may be down the road, but those are all very advanced techniques, and you don't want to get distracted from the basic task as a beginner, which is learning new movement patterns and identifying the kinds of exercises you want to do and how to do them right. That should be the focus of when you start, because you can do some of these incredible advanced training tips, but really they're meant for people who are advanced. And I think for beginners, it's keep it basic, keep it simple, and just, get in there with enough frequency that you starting to cause an effect on your body.
So we've been saying beginner, advanced. What do you see? When is someone a beginner? When do they cross over into advanced? Like, when can I start occluding the blood flow to get massive pumps?
Like when I say so. No.
I've got a belt
I get the
right here.
stamp of approval.
I've got this belt. We could put it on your
just
arm right now.
Go for it.
I don't know that there's an anniversary date that says, hey, I've been lifting for 6 months. I'm now going to jump into an intermediate. Beginners typically follow certain kinds of routines where they don't do a lot of exercises per body part. It's sort of a whole body routine, like 3 sets of one exercise for chest, 3 sets of a leg exercise. They do it all in the same day. After a while, that workout kind of stops working. There's a law of diminishing returns for just about everything in life, but it works for training too. You're going to need more stimulus to take the next step to the next level. And so you start doing more volume per body part. You start splitting your workout up. That's where you start seeing the jump to the next level. And that's a continual process. You should never expect that the same workout you did is going to work forever, because it just doesn't. You need to start understanding what those variables are that are linked to growth and start finding ways to manipulate them to put changes into your workout
So
to
what
keep you
you're
growing.
saying, it sounds like it's not just a matter of finding the perfect workout, which is what I hear people searching for all the time, but it's also having the right mindset as you enter the gym, even as a beginner, not letting your intimidation get in the way, but actually trying to build expertise from the start.
None of us knew much about what we were doing when we first started. Krissy's a PhD now, but she wasn't a PhD when she started lifting, probably in high school.
She bought that PhD
I
online.
did. There's actually a Groupon
Still
for
paying,
one out now.
still paying.
So weekend PhD course.
But even pro bodybuilders, I've interviewed.
Bodybuilding University.
Yep.
But there's even some pro
Doesn't matter.
bodybuilders that I've interviewed, and I asked them, tell me about some of the things you did wrong when you first started training, and you find amazing. Milo Sarcev once told me he would train biceps for 5 hours, and they actually be smaller by the time he finished than anything.
Muscle wasting.
But we're all going to make mistakes early on. Okay, that's part of it. The thing is, you don't want to make mistakes that might cause an injury, which means learning good form is absolutely imperative when you first start out. It might be worth a good investment to hire a personal trainer who obviously needs to be one who knows what he's doing, not one that you'd see at sort of the low-end fitness health club who's still in high school kind of thing. So, investing in that, reading as much as you can, for beginner-based stuff. Don't get caught up in the triple drop set kind of things.
Or how much weight is on the bar. That's the thing that drives me crazy is when I see people who are like, well, if I'm going to do a squat, I better put 2 plates on there. Otherwise, it doesn't count as a squat, but it's a battle for their
going
life.
a quarter down.
Yeah, exactly. Going a quarter down, heels coming up.
Yeah.
And it looks and the deadlift is another one. I've heard some really compelling cases from pretty smart strength coaches saying, nobody needs to do anything lower than a rack pull. Like if you are deadlifting for a very good reason, you really want to measure your strength, you want to compete, that's one thing. But the rest of us, put it at knee level. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
But there might be other strength coaches who have different opinions as well, and really, I can't say that any one is right because they both have compelling reasons behind them. But
scalability is something that does get lost, I feel like, in contemporary gym culture, because you see people online constantly bragging about how strong they are.
But the free bar squat is probably not the first squat you're going to try. I like a goblet squat is really easy for beginners to learn. Once you start feeling the hips and the knees, how they flex and extend, you get that, and then you graduate to something a little bit more difficult. So the idea is start off with movements that are fairly simple, and sometimes even done on machines, and you learn the movement patterns, and then you're going to start making things harder. Why do you make it harder? Because that's when you adapt to the increase in the overload. You're not going to adapt if you keep it simple all the time. You have to make this sort of a progressive challenge over time.
And I think something that we've kind of hinted around but haven't really addressed it, and probably one of my biggest pet peeves in the gym, and something that I've learned over the years, is planning a workout and then tracking your workout. Because if you go into the gym, you're going to say, I'm going to hit chest today, and I'll see people do flat bench, barbell, flat bench, dumbbell, incline, barbell, incline, dumbbell, and it's hitting the same muscle groups, more or less the same stimulus. And then if they're not tracking their weight, how do you know you're progressing? So then they do a program for 2 weeks and they switch to something completely different. You're never going to progress that way, or probably not in the way that you want to. I always tell people, just come in with a plan, have an idea. You don't have to have it 100% done, because obviously something might be taken, something not, but it drives me insane when I see someone doing the same thing.
And we've got some good workouts on our site that I've seen that have smart approaches to doing some of this progression for any body part that you want. But there's tons of bad information out online too. So it's hard to sift through.
But as a beginner, I just come in with a plan and know what you're doing.
This is, I'm going to have my kettlebell moment here. This is one reason why I like the kettlebell, because you have fewer choices to make. There are fewer weights to choose from, and the jumps are bigger. So it's not like, am I going to do a squat with the 53 pound or the 55 pound or the 57 pound? It's like, you get the 35, you get the 53, you got the 70, and you have fewer choices to make, and it makes it so much easier to come in with a plan, especially once you start to get exhausted.
Yeah.
And I don't know what gym you go to, but those plates don't exist where I train. So
we train in Canada.
No, we have 2.5 pound plates here, though. You can move up in 2.5 pound increments, and then there's also the £1.25 collars.
Yep.
Which you can. So
you
can do the super incremental way here if you want to, even though this is not the most outfitted gym by any means.
No. Yeah, it does its job.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Bill, if you had it all to do over again, you run across a little hot tub time machine. You can go back and tell young Bill Geiger,
Well, Bill Geiger,
dude, you got to do it this way. What would you do differently?
Well, it's funny because I do help a lot of beginners out at the gym, so it's not necessarily that I'm under some notion I'm going to start again, but I oftentimes can help someone out who's just getting started, who's very enthusiastic about what they're doing. I think for a lot of beginners to get overwhelmed with the amount of information. There's just so much they can learn, but like Krissy said, you just got to keep it basic and keep it simple, and you work from there. They don't need to know everything about what's happening in the gym and all the things they can be doing. There are dozens and dozens of chest exercises to choose from. Many simply just repeat what you've done on a barbell with dumbbells or a machine, so they're more or less interchangeable, but you don't do them all. And it's just sort of...
I think those are good words to live by. Just watch out for meaningless, repetitive volume.
Right, yeah.
Because you go there, you're like, I got an hour. Today's chest day. I'll do all the chest stuff.
But I know people who do that.
Right, I'm sure.
And they have 9 exercises they do for chest, and it's just like that's going in the wrong direction. In fact, you often hear bodybuilders say it's the longer the workout, that means you were less intense. You should focus on building intensity in a shorter time than trying to make up for what you didn't do by lengthening your workout by adding on more sets of different exercises. This is not an aerobic activity, what we're doing here.
You have to get your selfies in, too. Keep that in your mind, too. Lengthens the workout. Take your pictures.
When I was in...
Didn't happen.
I was in New Jersey like six months ago in this random-ass hotel gym, and there was this guy there. I think I recognized that guy. And it might be Steve Weatherford, but I don't think that's Steve Weatherford. And then I saw him go over and take his shirt off in the middle of the gym and start taking selfies next to the dumbbell rack.
It's Steve.
I was like, oh yeah, that's Steve Weatherford.
Steve.
So there is a benefit to it.
Well,
if I had not seen him taking that shirtless selfie in the middle of a crowded room of people who are like, what the hell is this guy doing? I wouldn't have known it was Steve
And
Weatherford.
the workout
and I went up and said hi to him.
unless you have proof of it. So I think that's really that's the workouts.
So Krissy, let's talk about creatine for a second. First of all, have I been saying it wrong all this time?
That's
because looking at that, I see creatine.
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 And you certainly don't want to be a cretin.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think you'll find a lot of times in the world of academia, you talk to researchers, a lot of times we will say creatine.
Which looks wrong.
I know.
As somebody who likes my silent E's that change the vowels.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'll say beta-alanine, so I have the E in there.
Alanine.
But I think it's beta-alanine. I think it's, you grow up and you learn from your mentor whatever was said in your lab. And for us, it was creatine. And
was it creatine or creatine? Because there's one of those.
Creatine. Creatinine. No, creatine. Skeletal muscle or skeletal muscle. That's
skeletal. Skeletal. He just died.
The Canadians will say skeletal. Yeah. So there's just don't hate on me because I say creatine.
No. I was worried about being hated upon.
Yeah. No. I would say probably creatine. Is that how you say it? Creatine?
Well, Krissy being from a southern state says things a little differently than the rest of us here. So.
Wait, what?
Huh?
I thought you were French Canadian.
No. Yeah, so creatine.
So, but anyway, we just you just had an article come out a couple of days ago about creatine and how people can get seemingly the most simple of dosing supplements wrong. Like, whey protein, I could see, you get it wrong because you think, I'll just take a shake every now and again. But the dosing ingredients for creatine are so simple, you would think it would be impossible to get screwed up. Take it every day. Take 1 scoop every damn day.
Yep.
But plenty of people don't see the results. Maybe they assume that they're one of those famous non-responders.
Yeah. Few and famous.
How few are they? What's your take on the non-responder?
It's estimated about 20%.
20%, that's a lot.
But again, so you have to look at these studies are not the longest running studies. It's very hard to get in clinical research to get supplement studies to go on for a very, very long time. They're not funded well, and then there's compliance. And so, you say someone was a responder or non-responder, you're saying, okay, you gave it to them for 4 weeks, their strength didn't increase, they must be a non-responder.
Okay.
And that's how it's not so much of, we ran all of these genetic tests and we did muscle biopsies.
You lack
and
the
we
creatine gene.
So you might have noticed after 4 weeks, creatine levels did not, or phosphocreatine levels didn't increase. Okay, so they might be a non-responder, or their strength didn't, every other person who did this study had significant changes. These two didn't, and they were on it. They might be non-responders.
Now, I've heard it theorized that non-responder person is potentially just somebody who eats so much meat.
Yeah, so usually it's because their levels are already at a high enough point where supplementing with any more.
Okay, so that person's not low generally.
Right. Similar thing with beta-alanine. So if you have someone who is a sprint athlete, who is a kind of an athlete that excels in activities that last 1 to 6 minutes, kind of like the sweet spot for beta-alanine, even their training, their body can adapt to increased carnosine levels, which is what beta-alanine increases. So giving them extra beta-alanine is not going to do anything because they've kind of tapped out their stores. So
a carnosine machine, as it is, just walking, bubbling font of carnosine.
Make it all day. Yeah, so that's a non-responder. But I would say most people are probably just not using it correctly or taking it correctly.
And what do you think the most common explanation is? Is it just that person who's like, I took it a couple of days, didn't take it a couple of days, took it a couple of days, didn't take it a couple of days?
I would say either they did a loading protocol, felt miserable, or noticed a small weight gain. I don't know. Right. Creatine makes me bloated and it makes me gain weight. And or they're like, it's in this drink I already have. It's in this supplement that I already have, whether it's pre-workout, post-workout, whatever it is. And a lot of times because of the number of ingredients in those products or the cost of, having to include some of the ingredients, they will put only, 1 or 2 grams. And that's just not going to do it. For most people, it's
and
not
so you see with
do
some
it.
of those proprietary blends, you really don't know the actual amount of each of the ingredients you're getting.
Right, which is why I tell people, creatine is so cheap to buy on its own. Like, buy a tub of it.
Beta-alanine as well.
Beta-alanine, very
inexpensive, right.
And creatine, you're talking a teaspoon. Like, you don't even notice that you're taking that.
But on the other hand, it gets much more expensive after the creatine makes you snap and go beat somebody up in the grocery store,
or
then
kill
there's
someone.
the defense fund and all that sort of
Or you
stuff.
suffer a cramp on the football field.
Or have kidney failure.
That's right. Kidney failure.
That's expensive.
It's very expensive.
It's when you have to deal with a transplant and dialysis. So I would say those two are the common ones. Or, it's funny that the article came out yesterday and there's so many comments that are like, well, okay, so heard that you should cycle off. Well, I've always said, don't ever cycle off creatine. There's it's like, why would you cycle off taking fish oil? Or why would you cycle off taking a multivitamin? It's not because it has no effect on your body's own production of creatine. So when people are like, so what happens when I come off of it? Well, you go back to down or right back to where you started and you reduce your levels of creatine. It's like, why would you? There's just no point to it.
Has anybody researched the grace period that goes with these various loading-based supplements like beta-alanine, creatine, sodium phosphate? Like how long are they good for?
Like if you stopped taking?
Well, like I'm thinking of sodium phosphate. So it has this 4 to 6 day loading protocol in theory, prepping for a race. But what if you're doing a multi-day race?
Yeah, and that one I don't know. I know that they've done with creatine and beta-alanine, it takes about 4 to 6 weeks to come back down. So let's say you stop supplementing. Yeah, so I tell people, if you're traveling, you don't want to bring, container of creatine and beta-alanine and whatnot. You're fine. If you take a few days off here and there, once
so you could do a
loaded,
weekday one, a weekday protocol as well.
Yeah. So and that happens a lot too, because I know for me, I always remember to take it with my BCAAs or whatever else. So if I'm, I don't train that day, sometimes I'll forget or I just won't add it to something. But I've been taking it since I started my master's program, that actually creatine I used it in my thesis. So I've been taking it since I was like 24. So 2 years.
You've been loaded. And how many people did you murder over the course of that?
Only 3, surprisingly.
Really?
Yeah.
But you're considering a 4th right now.
Well, I've been searching around this area to see where I would dispose of the body. And once I figured that out,
now, Krissy, you said the daily dosage of creatine was about 5 grams, right?
Yes.
So how many grams would you get in, let's say, a 16-ounce steak, for example? Is that enough to cover your daily needs?
Yeah, no. So it's a little bit, I don't know quite the conversion from cooked to raw.
Right.
Or raw to cooked. But it takes about 2 to 3 pounds of raw meat to get about 2 to 3 grams of creatine. And again, your body does make some as well. Your body makes about 2 grams and you excrete some as well. So if you wanted to go solely food, you're talking about whatever 3 pounds of raw meat is going to
It's doable.
cost you.
Probably
It's
not
doable,
the easiest way to get it,
but
though.
you're talking about maybe it costs 3 cents to take a serving of creatine. And I can tell you it's a lot more when you're cooking up that much steak.
Yeah, that is the low price option for sure.
Yeah.
As opposed to tart cherry. One of my friends wanted to get some tart
Yes,
cherry.
yeah.
My God,
It's
that stuff
expensive.
just
Yeah, but then it's the option is if you eat it is 40 cherries or something
Right.
like that. So
Yeah, I hadn't
It's
thought
like
about just that might be cheaper still though.
Yeah.
Getting the actual cherries because you can go to
Or a
Costco.
pie. If I ate a whole
Kirkland makes a
pie.
big old bag of tart cherries.
Are you sure they're not the other kind of cherries?
No, they are.
They are?
Montgomery tart cherries, which
Okay.
are the ones they use in the studies.
yeah,
I might pass that along.
yeah. We just need to get you sponsored
Yeah.
by a tart cherry person. Solve.
There's Nick Collias here for tart cherries. Get tart from the start. If you go to the website of our podcast, you can click to a link. Read Dr. Krissy Kendall's 5 reasons your creatine is not working. And we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, you've heard of beta-alanine, but what about beta-alanine? Beer?
Anyone?